And then, of course, she can exert no influence in foreign policy.
Dr. Dobbs, looking over your long career, and might say so, quite distinguished career, you've dealt with a number of matters, a number of subjects, I noticed. One that we still have here was in Australia, fluoridation. Now, you were very much involved in that, both as a scientist and as a, I suppose, a social creditor.
Well, yes. Much against my will, I was dragged into this by the local medical officer in North Wales, in Anglesey, where one of the government experiments was carried out. And I was busy enough, I didn't want to be involved, but the nonsense this man wrote in the press was so awful that I butted in. Now, in doing this, I was fulfilling a function which social creditors are called upon to do once they've sort of been through the training and have attained a certain maturity in the subject. It's called the civil service. I was acting as a civil servant of policy. The ordinary people didn't want fluoride in the water anywhere in the world that I've discovered. But the technique of putting it over them is to come over with a lot of phony science and make out it's a technical matter. Now, my function was not to know all about fluorides and fluoridation, but to debunk this blinding with science technique, and to suggest to people as much as I could, stick to the guns. Your real line is that you don't want to drink this stuff and you're being forced to drink it if it's put in the water. Stick to that line and you'll win. If you get arguing with a medical officer or a dentist about teeth, or a medical officer about health, and what fluoride does to you and all that sort of thing, even though you're right and he's wrong, he's got the jargon, and they'll believe him, and you'll probably lose the case.
You had a long association with the conservation movement and the whole subject of ecology from the point of view of your own training. And what would you have to say about what's happening now to the conservation movement?
Yes, I was teaching ecology for a long time before it became anything to do with politics. It was just a branch of science, study of the environment and relation between organisms. Basically, when the movement that is now called the Green Movement, they called themselves in Britain the Ecology Movement originally. We didn't like that, the people who were professional ecologists, but all the same, I was, and I am, all on their side. It is the movement that is now attracting youth, and on very solid grounds. Therefore, it is the movement that is certain to be taken over. The modern green movement is now called, or I suppose started by that famous book Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. I remember when that came out, it really rocked America from the president down. He set up a committee and so on. I happened to be over there the following year, and the big chemical firms had got around to debunking it. as unscientific and political and all that sort of thing. It wasn't. Yes, it was a work of advocacy, but it was soundly argued, soundly based. And a number of, in my view, reputable people. One of them is James Lovelock, and another is E.F. Schumacher, Small is Beautiful, that book, have exerted a very beneficial influence. But it's bad enough at home, the way that big business and big money has moved in, exploited everything and twisted a lot of these young people, but not all of them, around. For instance, in Germany, they've been quite successful as a political party. Once you form a political party, your objectives change from, for instance, protecting the environment to power for us and our crowd. We must, this has always been the argument. It was the social credit movement. The only way we can, these are splendid ideas we have, we must get power and impose them on other people. And various branches that started off in the social credit movement drifted off into party politics. The trouble was that they had some success too, in Alberta, for instance. And this distracted all sorts of people. People go in for power politics. They hope to be an MP or something with, some of the pickings and prestige and all that. And that has taken the place of the original objective. Now, the core, the honest core of the Green Movement, I think there is still an honest core. In Britain, the way it's been taken over, it really rather amuses me, because when I was teaching ecology in the 50s, all the sort of official establishment in agricultural science and forestry and so on really thought I was a crank talking about planting the right sort of trees and bothering about the soil and mycorrhiza, the fungus roots that infect every tree and enable it to grow in poor soils and all that sort of thing. They called it muck and magic. And now muck and magic's taken over in big business. And all these scientists that used to accuse us of muck and magic are now blasting out muck and magic like anything. But so I do feel, first of all, that here is a movement which on sound, legitimate grounds is attracting the young, and the one thing they desperately need is social credit. They haven't grasped that 90% of the things they deplore, of the appalling destruction of the environment, is carried out not for real purposes, but for monetary reasons. Now, I come over here and I've talked like this and say, look, there's a sound movement. It's being distorted. But I must say it's the distortion is much cruder here than it is at home. It's much more blatant. For instance, at home, the Friends of the Earth are a very respectable organization. When they oppose something, they at least assemble the facts, and people refer to them. The government and local council